Good evening. It's 10:01 p.m. on April 3rd, 2021. I am just going to go ahead and give a reminder and a notification. There's an article discussing how lawyers in Texas are concerned that the courts are going to start evicting people because of the expiration of a moratorium for non payment of rent that was provided by the CDC. That was followed up with a 34th emergency order from the Texas Supreme Court last fall concerning evictions. First of all, immediately during and after Hurricane Harvey, there was a comparable situation in the city of Houston and Harris County, and there was considerable foul play that occurred in regards to concerns about people and being able to make rents, but also being able to make taxes. And in the course of that, there were already identified to be problems with the situation concerning the eviction process. And as a result, I ended up filing court filings with the Supreme Court of Texas for, among other things, to have an acknowledgement of a state of emergency that would allow for an invocation of the various laws associated with the role of the Adjutant General after the consultation with the Attorney General. I was never provided with any information, and I have been isolated way before there was any official declaration. On the other hand, as part of that process, in August of 2017, Supreme Court of Texas was specifically requested to provide an audit of the Texas Economic Development Bank and to allow for the individual citizens of Texas to get information on anything that had been done using their identity in association with the Texas Economic Development Bank. To this day, it has not been provided. Additionally, the Texas Insurance Board, which has a separate process from the judicial process, is in default. They are more than several months in default on a particular level, but they are almost going on now a year and a half, actually 2.5 years, since they failed to respond within the time frame they were legally required to respond to a very, very serious act of insurance fraud that directly implicated the legislature of Texas in its refusal to forestall other crimes that were happening by other in the state of Texas. So at this time, there is a challenge to the credibility of those alleging to have the authority to conduct business under the guise that they represent the state of Texas. On the other hand, through the Texas Military Code, as I understand it, Supreme Court precedent has already established that militia is separate from the military. There is a distinction that is a technical distinction that has to do with authorities invoked in actually organizing the military organization, but the militia has rights that are constitutionally enshrined and inviolable. And insofar as there may be a disputation about an incursion or an encroachment of the federal jurisdiction of the United States military within the state of Texas, please understand that's also already been acknowledged and challenged by virtue of actions that were taken by the alleged governor, Greg Abbott, ever since the beginning of the alleged COVID-19 pandemic situation, wherein at least 3 times now he has been caught encroaching upon federal duties and federal powers in order to prematurely or completely unconstitutionally attempt to invoke the authority of the Texas governor to try to draw down on federal resources and operate as if he's a federal actor when he is not. On the other hand, there are laws within the state of Texas we can take to protect ourselves. As I mentioned last weekend, there are specific laws concerning the Texas, under the Texas Military Code, concerning matters that can be taken into effect, including the right here, creation of a fund. There is a Texas, under the Texas Military Code, section 437.155F, acquisition, management, pledge of rents, issues, and profits. There can be developed a fund that can be used in order to pay the rents for those that are engaged in or are identified as being in property that has been put to use in service of the state of Texas during a state of emergency such as we are in now. I contend that we can actually take this fund and we can engage a process that's already been started. I'd already discussed last week and have already worked on it. A process we can engage beginning Monday, where we can actually extend credit. We could do it in the name of the fund associated with the operationalization of these possibilities we have under the Texas Military Code. And we can have a month during which time we allow for an extension of credit that can then be yielded starting in May when we start meeting benchmarks in connection with the activities that we do in conjunction with the setting aside of this fund and also with the invocation of the other elements that we have available to us, including a recapitulation or recompositioning of local financial aspects that we have available and other things that we can do, including the issuing and selling of bonds under an emergency circumstance like this, and an understanding of other funds that are available to us to support housing and training. These were part of a video I made last weekend. So there's already been a public notice. There's already been an effort put out to the public. As for the Supreme Court of Texas, let me tell you, just the other day, I identified something very questionable in terms of the authority of the Supreme Court of Texas. It is a very unfortunate matter that the corruption that has been exhibited by those in so-called government right now is of such an extent that while we really need for them to perform their roles in a competent manner that places the interest of the people ahead of whatever other justification there is, that has been very lacking. And so it's a very difficult situation on one hand, but on the other hand, there is also the other possibility, which gets to the heart of the matter. I'm going to try to keep this brief. When SB 4 was passed in 2017, the greatest threat to this was not just about the concept of allowing for undocumented immigrants to find sanctuary within various cities, but it was about a specific and strategic effort to divest elected law enforcement of the duty they had to make decisions about how to apply the law. No Texas sheriff has the right, the duty, the expectation, or the cover to enforce an illegal eviction. It is in the hands of sheriffs to make determinations about application of law regarding evictions. And so this is something that was attempted, I believe, in an extortionate manner to unduly influence when the governor abused his office in doing what he did as part of the politicking leading up to the passage of SB 4. And when SB 4 was allowed to be passed without being challenged for its unconstitutionality, then we allowed for things to be set in motion in the state of Texas we're dealing with now. And we need to deal with it now. No sheriff has the duty, expectation, or the cover to enforce an illegal eviction. On the other hand, it is the responsibility of sheriffs in the state of Texas to actually enforce evictions. So the roles that they take in the next week and in the upcoming weeks and the next few months are going to be very important. But this is part of what they are here, part of what they do, part of what they're constitutionally required to do, and the manner in which they go about doing their duties, especially in conjunction with the local municipalities, understanding that their role is to protect the property and to protect the people in their property per the Constitution. So how they do this is going to be very important, but what we do to step up is also going to be very important. I contend I've already composed, as much as I can offer personally, a budget in connection with what the state of Texas has already defaulted on, including several agencies in the state of Texas, including several individuals claiming they're qualified to present themselves as representatives of the state of Texas. We have everything we need to maintain a fund, a temporary fund, to pay the rents. We're not asking for a waiver. We're not asking for a moratorium. We can pay the rent. The problem is, why are they preventing and holding up the means necessary in order to get that fund financed? It should already have been financed since August of 2017. If it took 60 days, if it took 90 days, by the beginning of 2018, that fund should already have been established. We should already have had it available for something exactly like this. So if you are an attorney in Texas, regardless of whatever else there might be, politically speaking, that I might have put out there, especially if you're a member of the State Bar of Texas, please know I support you in these efforts. And we have resources and we have possibilities available to us. Nobody should be evicted. And no judge should be enforcing an order to evict anybody or issuing an order to evict anybody. And no sheriff should be put in a position where they are illegally compelled to enforce an illegal eviction order.